She wanted a son. Why did she want a son? So that if something breaks in the house, she can blame it on the kid.
Also, Hashem Esraposi. Here, there's a lot of Torah on that, but yeah, that's a partial of job. Okay, so let's see the Heilige Mishnah. Ha'isha shahalach baila v'tzarasa l'medina siyam. A woman whose husband went with her co-wife l'medina siyam. He told her, honey, this time it's Rivka's turn. Next time, maybe I'll take you on the vacation. This time it's her turn. And they came back and told her, Meis Bailach. And she said, what an SOB, he deserves it. He went away and he left me behind. So the halacha is, she could not get married because her husband left without any children. So maybe she's Zokok to Yibum. But if her brother-in-law is there, she can't even take Yibum. Why, Rashi says? Because since her husband went with her co-wife, maybe she became pregnant and had a child. Or maybe she only became pregnant. Maybe she's pregnant. Or maybe she even had a child over there. And therefore, she's not Mechuyev Yibum. And there's an Isser Eshesach. Ad sheteda shema meuberes hitzarasa. Unless she finds out if her tzara is pregnant. What if she had a mother-in-law who went along with her husband, but she had no brother-in-law? So when her mother-in-law and her husband left, she was in a chazaka that if her husband died, she would have been mechuyev in yibum because there was no one to do yibum with. There ain't a chesheshes. She doesn't have to be choshesh that the mother-in-law had another child, of course, with the father-in-law. So he must have went along on the trip as well, because it's only negeya to do yibum if they're brothers and they share a father. Yot Samaleya, but if the mother-in-law was expecting when she went away, then chasheshes, because we know she's expecting. I'm sorry? What? That she'll get pregnant? So the Gemara is going to end up saying is because 50% of the children that could be born would be female. So that wouldn't be relevant for Yibum. And there's some children who don't survive the birth. Come to Chayis, there's a myriad of children that would be male and would survive the birth. Masha Enkin, when the co-wife goes, no matter what she has, whether it's a girl or a boy, it pops them from Yibum. So Zok Gemara, my hitzarasa. It's a funny lotion. Rashi says, Acheteda Shema Meuberes hitzarasa. It could have said Shema Meuberes tarasa. What's the hitzarasa in the Mishnah? If you know that your husband was married to another wife, you have to be concerned whether or not she became expecting. But what if you found out for sure that she was not expecting? Maybe you have to be worried that maybe when he was over there, he picked up another wife. Maybe he picked up another wife. Maybe he picked up another wife. And therefore, you have to be worried. Maybe he picked up another wife. On that, you don't have to be choshesh. You don't have to be choshesh. You picked up another wife. So as long as you could prove, be sure that the Torah that you were aware of did not have a child or is not expecting, then she would be mechuyev to do even.
Why do you have to go so far as saying that he married another woman? You could say she got pregnant on the trip.
Right, now you have to be choshesh. The woman that he went with, his existing wife, we have to be concerned that she became pregnant on the trip. And therefore, the halacha is loisis yabim, because maybe there's a child there. But let's say she knows that that wife didn't become pregnant. She doesn't have to be worried that he took on a third wife, and that third wife might be pregnant. So she only needs the results of one pregnancy test, not of two. I understand why she can't do evil. The Dilma Me'abra, maybe her co-wife is expecting, therefore there's no Chi of Yibum, and there's an Isser Chi of Karis for her to marry her husband's brother, the Kapaga Be'eshusach L'Raisa, and she might be being over Karis by doing Yibum. And the Lois say, why can't she marry Lashuk? Am I? Halach Achar Roiv Noshim. Why don't you follow Roiv Noshim? Roiv Noshim is Sabris V'Yoldes. Most women in a marriage become pregnant and they give birth, right? That's why Somebody once asked the Baba Dayan if she has to fast on Yom Kippur or on Tisha B'Av maybe, and the Dayan told her, of course you don't have to. Either you're expecting. If you're not expecting, then you just had a baby. And if you're not expecting, you didn't just have a baby, there's something wrong with you. Then for sure you can't fast. Is that true? Okay. So Lema Rav Meir. So let's say that our Mishnah must be going to Rav Meir. The Chai Shlomuta. We're choishish that maybe this woman didn't have a baby. So since it's a suffix, if her co-wife had a baby or not, on the side that she had a baby, it's also for her to do yibum. It's a issue. But on the side that she didn't have a baby, on the miyut that she didn't have a baby, then she's mechuyev in yibum. Therefore, lo shinasei v'lo shabin. The question that's going to come up is, so why can't you do chalitza? Why can't you do chalitza? It sounds like she's stuck. Maybe we even go like the Rabbanon, who is not chayish l'muta. So if the Rabbanon is not chayish l'muta, why can't you get married under the assumption that her tzara had a child? Maybe you can say, Ki the Rabbanon basar ruba. When do the Rabbanon go basar roiv? That's a ruba the isay kamon go in teisha chanuyos v'sanhedri. By a ruba the isay kamon. What's a ruba the isay kamon? Teisha chanuyos. Somebody found a piece of meat in a plaza. In that plaza, there are 9 kosher stores and 1 non-kosher store. If you find meat on the floor in that plaza, you can assume it came from the roiv the Isa Kaman. There's 9 stores versus the 1 store that's not kosher. Or Sanhedrin, when they're paskening, so roiv dayanim will pasken one way, Miyut would say the other way, so you pass like roiv. It's the roiv the Isa Kaman. You can count the dayanim right here. Of Ruba the Lesikaman, a Ruba the Lesikaman is really not a roiv, it's a statistic, right? Statistically, a woman's going to have a child. It's more likely that a woman's going to have a child, and therefore she should be also to do yibum. But it's not a what I would call a bricks and mortar type of roiv. It's more a theoretical, statistical roiv. So maybe there and therefore even the Rabbanon would agree in our Mishnah that she cannot marry Lashuk because there's a meet of woman who didn't become pregnant. Frankly, I'm going to prove to you that the Rabbanon who hold of Roiv, even hold of a Ruba the Lesser Kaman, even hold that you follow a Roiv that's merely statistical. Because a Katan Nuktana Lagabi there, Chiyav Yibum, let's look at that. The Ruba the Lesser Kamani, the Roiv that we're going to discuss relative to the Katan Nuktana is a statistical Roiv. And the Rabbanon follow the Roiv. Where do you see that? The Tanya we learned. Katan ukatana loichotum v'lo miyabim. A katan and a katana, they don't do chalitza, nor do they do yibum. Divrei Reb Meir. These are the words of Reb Meir only, who's chayish l'muta. Amalei Reb Meir. Yafa Marta. We agree with you. It makes perfect sense. She'ein chalitza. Of course, a katan and a katana cannot be involved in the chalitza because it says v'shalom ish na'aloi ish ksiv b'parsha. Uses the word ish to tell you that only an adult male can be involved in the chalitza, and we say that the same requirements of a man in the chalitza process applies to the woman as well because of a hekish, and therefore a woman has to be an adult as well. So we'll agree with you. Why, Reb Meir, do you say that a katan and a katana cannot engage in evil? Amalahem, Reb Meir said, I'll tell you why. Katan shamayim sasris. This katan, we don't know his status until he matures and he reaches puberty. What if he doesn't? A shris is not mechuyev in yibum, and if a shris does yibum, it's a chiyav kares. He's being peigeya be'eshes achim shaloi b'makom mitzvah, or a katana shemitim to idleness. This girl might be on the idleness where there's no chiyav yibum on the idleness. V'nimtza peigim be'erva, and now it turns out that this bia was not a bia of mitzvah of yibum, rather it was a bia of chiyav kares. That's why Reb Meir holds. That's why Reb Meir holds you can't do yibum. But for Rabbanon Savri, Zilbas Aruba Dektanim, Roiv Ktanim Lavs Rishininim. The Rabbanon say Roiv Ktanim statistically, Roiv children end up reaching puberty and end up being a regular healthy male. So therefore, we can allow them to do even as a katan and we'll assume that they're from the Roiv. Or Zilbas Aruba Ktanis, Roiv Ktanis Lav Islandless to them. Or follow Roiv Ktanis, and Roiv Ktanis are not islandless. Morning. So therefore, you can't tell me that the Rabbanan would agree with our Mishnah because they would not follow the roy that most women have children, and therefore she's mutter l'shuk. Rather, you have to be choshed that maybe this woman didn't have a child. Therefore, the only person who we can say agrees with the Reish of our Mishnah is Reb Meir, and Reb Meir is choshish that this woman didn't have a child. But in fact, according to the Rabbanan, where you can follow the roy and assume that this woman had a child, when a woman, her husband goes away with her co-wife, and she finds out that her husband dies, she's allowed to go and marry Lashuk under the assumption that for sure her sister-in-law had a child, not her sister-in-law, her co-wife had a child, and therefore she's mutter Lashuk. Okay, so now you want to say that the author of our Mishnah is Reb Meir. Reb Meir. Well, let's see how well that fits in to the Sefer of the Mishnah. Anyway, Sefer. It says, she had a mother-in-law who also traveled with her father-in-law and her husband overseas when they went away. If she finds out that her husband dies, she could marry Lashuk and doesn't have to be choshed that maybe her brother-in-law, she got a brother-in-law, maybe her mother-in-law gave birth to a child. Am I correctly more? What would the reason for that be? Because halach achar Rav Noshim. You follow Rav Noshim. The Rav Noshim misabris v'yoldos. Most women do have children, so why aren't we concerned that their mother-in-law had a child and now this woman is zokuk l'ibum? Because the teretz is miut mapilos. First of all, out of the 100% of women that become pregnant, there's a minority of them that lose their child. Let's say it's even 1%. So now only 99% of the pregnancies lead to a viable child. And statistically, there's 50% male children born and 50% female children born. So then, if you are only working out of 99%, and half of that will be like 49%, well, it's less than 50. Therefore, there's less than 50% of the pregnancies that net a healthy male child, and therefore we assume that there's no male child born. Correct the Gemara, but according to Reb Meir, isn't Reb Meir choshish l'miyuta? So according to Reb Meir, even if her mother-in-law travels, why aren't you choshish to say that she's also l'shuk? She should say she's also l'shuk because maybe there's a yavam that was born. Memela, according to the Rabbanon, you go bust right. But according to Reb Meir, that you're chayish l'miyuta, maybe there was a male child born and she's zokuk l'ibum. So how in the Sefer, if it's going according to Reb Meir, is the almana allowed to remarry? Zok to Gemara, maybe you could say, why did you say, Dilma, even the ichscha l'shuk, loy chayish? Maybe you could say, Zok to Gemara, the kash was v'leichus. Why did you chayish that there's a miyut of children that will be healthy males, and therefore she should be aser? And for the Gemara, Dilma, maybe you could say, even the ichscha l'shuk, since when her mother-in-law left, she had a chazaka that she was mutter to marry, because she had a chazaka that there was no brother to her husband. Therefore, loy chayish. She has a chazaka here as well that's saying that she's allowed to marry. Frekti Gemara, Reisha, the ichzak liyibam, then tiyabing. If you say you mix in the chazaka here, and that helped us push it this question, well then, when her husband left with her co-wife, at that point there were no children, and therefore she had a chazaka that she would be mechuyev to do yibam in the event that her husband dies. So therefore, why did you use the chazaka over there to say she should do yibam? Why did your mayor over there chayish l'miyuta and say that she cannot do yibam? I'll tell you why. In the Reisha, if she's going to do yibam and follow the chazaka, well, in the chance that she's not mechuyev in yibam, there's an isakaris of eshazak. So that's something that we don't want to let her do. But say for the Isra Lav, in the Seifa, if she ends up marrying and not doing Yibum, because she follows her Chazaka, the worst that she'll be over is Alav, because it's Yevamos Lashuk, which is Alav, the no Chiv cars. Therefore, Loi Chashishu, therefore they weren't Chashish. Before we go back there, what is the real statistics? Is it are 50% of the children born girls and 50 boys? If so, why is there a shidduch crisis? Who? Oh, because every year there's more children and we're a generation up.
Girls started earlier. Boys don't start till later.
So he does agree statistically that it is 50% girls and 50% boys.
Percentage, and they're 4 years separated, right?
And the problem is as you go longer, there's more people. I hear. Amarava. So Zakrava, Michti. I don't understand something. When you're making a gzeira, I understand they'll be more serious with a gzeira, lahachik adam, minanavera, they'll make a stronger gzeira by a chi of kares than they will by a chi of lav. But this is not a gzeira. Here, this might actually be happening. It's possible that she's actually being a Yevamos Lashuk. So Zakar Michti, Hadaraisa, Vadaraisa. There's an Isur Daraisa to marry your husband's brother, Shalai B'Makam Mitzvah. And there's an Isur Daraisa for a woman who's Mochiv and Yibum to marry somebody else. Mali is a curse, Mali is a love.
What was the love? What was the husband? What did you say was the love?
Since even if she is Mochiv and Yibum, she's only being over an Isur love, because there's an Isur for a Yevama not to marry Lashuk. She has to get Yibum or Chalitza. And if she does marry Lashuk, then there's an Isur love. So since that's the stakes, since those are the stakes, we're not going to be, we won't be so careful. But practically, that doesn't make sense. When you're making a gzeira, you could say you make a gzeira by a chiyuv kares. But when you have a question that's actually occurring over here, here's the 50% chance, here's the chance you're being over allowed, and here's the chance you're being over allowed with kares. Either way, we wouldn't allow that to happen. So how could you say in the seifa? Where it's an isur lav, we let her marry l'shuk, we're not choshish. I'll tell you what shot has to be. So again, what is our problem? If you're choshish l'miyuta, then in the reisha, you're choshish that maybe her co-wife didn't have a child. And if her co-wife didn't have a child, then she's mechuyev in ibum, therefore we don't let her marry anybody else. We don't follow her right. In the seifa, the halacha is that we're letting her marry out, and we're not choshed for the miyut that maybe her mother-in-law had a child, and now there's a chiyuv ibum over here. So why aren't you choshed? I'll tell you the difference. Reisha, chazaka, leibum. In the Reisha, there's a chazaka that she's mechuyev in yibum, because right now when her husband left with her co-wife, there were no children. And there was a brother-in-law. So there is a chazaka. She's right now muchzik that she needs to have ibum. Veruba l'shuk. But the Rav tells us, contradicting the chazaka, that this co-wife had a child, and therefore she's mutter to marry anybody. There's no chiyuv ibum. The chazaka lo'adav keruba. The chazaka is not as strong as a Rav. Tosha says it's lo'adav meruba, it's not stronger than the Rav. But we now have a Rav that's stronger, which would indicate that she could marry l'shuk. You take the miyut of women who are mapilos, which would maintain her chazaka that she needs to do yibum. Smoich chazaka, use it to buttress the koyach of the chazaka, and now you have a chazaka saying that she should do yibum, a strong chazaka, because now it's coupled up with the force of the miyut. Therefore, she should do yibum, and you have the Rav that tells you shouldn't do yibum. Palga. Now it's 50-50. We don't know. Should we say this woman is mechuyev in yibum or not? Therefore, loisi say she can't marry l'shuk because maybe she's mechuyev in yibum, like the chazaka and the miyut tells us. But for loisi shabim, she can't do yibum either because the Rav tells us that there was a child born. But seifa, in the seifa, you have chazaka l'shuk. The chazaka is that there's no brother-in-law. So if there's no brother-in-law, she's allowed to marry l'shuk. There's no chiyuv ibum. But beruba l'shuk. The Rav also says that l'shuk. Why? Because the Rav is not male children. The Rav is out of what are the chances of having a healthy male child? 49%. Because you have 49% male, 49% female, and 2% nothing at all. So there's a miut of male children. So therefore, Vavale Zechorim miuta de miuta. Zechorim is miuta de miuta. And therefore, miuta de miuta loy chayish, Reb Meir, even Reb Meir would agree that I'm not choshed that there was a healthy male child born, and therefore we let him marry Lashuk.
But I have a question on the ratio, because why can't we say that Sarah was mace also, and therefore that is the chance of the Sarah being mace could reduce it down to a.
I don't know if we assume that somebody died. Why don't you mix another suffix into the equation?
Because
That maybe she died.
If we're doing for all the possibilities for a child, okay, you've got this, that, and so on. So
So
why not in a
I think it's a good point. It's a good point, but it's possible. Maybe you can say that during the normal course of someone's life, someone's going to have a child, but it's not assumed that someone's going to die, because who dies? Only others die. We never die.
Yevamos. Everyone's dying, but unfortunately.
You mean 60% for right? What was he referring to? Oh, when you went to change the tables, to change the table. You need a super majority. Okay, let's see Rashi. So Rashi, Reisha Chazaka. The Chazaka is Ma'aseh al Yibam. Right now, she's in the status where she's Mechuyev in Yibam because there is a brother-in-law and there's no children. Veruba Ma'aseh al Hatashuk. The Roiv tells us that she'll be mutter because the Roiv Noshim Shabbos for Yoldas. Bari Yolda Tzarasa. The Nifter Agami. Even if her co-wife had a baby, that partners her from Yibam as well. The Chazaka loy Adav Kiruba. Chazaka, we say, is not as strong as a Roiv, the Nezal Abasra, that we should tell her to do Yibam because of the Chazaka. Hilach loy tis Yabim, she should not do Yibam. L'shuk nami loy, and she cannot marry L'shuk either, assuming that there's no Chiv Yibam, and assuming that a child was born, to have Meir, the Chayis Lamiuta. But by saving the Chazaka is L'shuk. When her mother-in-law left, there was no brother-in-law to do Yibam. And Veruba L'shuk. Rav also says that she should be able to get married. The namin is Abra Chamoisa, even if should her mother-in-law become pregnant, Shem Nekeva Isa. First of all, there's a 49% chance that it was Nekeva. Oy Nefel, and the 2% that it was a Nefel. The Rav Ubrim Nefelim Unekevis. Rav of the Ubrim fit into the category of either Nefelim or Nekevis, which would be 51%. Kedam Rinon Il. The method of Lodi Kaimi Nekevis. Half of the Vlodas that survived are Nekevis. Umiut Ubrim Nefelim, and out of all Ubrim, a Miut do not survive. Habu Zachorim the Kaima, viable Zachorim, Miuta would be a Miut, Lagabe Vlodos, Lagabe the full spectrum of Vlodos. Achanami, Ika Chazaka L'Roiv, you have a Chazaka on the Roiv, the Marin Nami L'Chashasha the Miuta the Zachorim. So that diminishes the concern of the Miut that there was a Yovim born. So what makes it a muta? Not because it's statistically low, it's still 49%. But since there's a chazaka connected and there's a rife connected, that beats up the miyut a little bit, and therefore even Reb Meir would agree that you're not choshed that the mother-in-law had a child. I don't know exactly what the statistics of Nephilim are. Right, so from Rashi you see that miyuta de doesn't literally mean a tiny amount. It means it's a miyuta de because there's a roiv connected and a chazaka connected.
Sorry, what is the chazaka again?
There's a chazaka that when her husband left, she was not mechuyev in Yibum because there was no brother-in-law with which to do Yibum.
That's the chazaka. Okay.
Oh, you said och mer chazaka. Okay, sag the Gemara weiter. Tinasei v'loy tishabei.
In the situation that
she's in, yeah. Tinasei v'loy tishabei. Sag the Gemara ula. She's stuck forever. This woman is stuck forever. Imagine her husband went away with her co-wife, and her husband died. We will never ever let her get married. Why? Because she can't do yibum. Because we have a roiv that a child was born, and she can't marry anybody else because maybe she's mechuyev in yibum. Omer Aziri la'atzma shloisha chadashim. Really, as far as herself is concerned, 3 months after her husband dies, she's allowed to marry because normally she only has to wait 3 months because of havchana. Rashi b'shvil atzma tamtim shloisha chadashim, the chol hanoshim tricha is lahamtim gimel chadashim. Every woman whose husband passes away or who divorces has to wait 3 months before they have another marriage. Even if her husband died in Medina Sayyam, so you know there were no relations for a while. Why should she have to wait? She hasn't been with her husband for months. Why does she still have to wait 3 months? Because a Cana of idleness, the law is, even as a Cana would have to wait 3 months, who is already in menopause or in idleness. So even though there's no chash of children, we still say automatic that every woman has to wait 3 months. I guess they made a let look, everybody has to wait. So so why is it la'olam? Why can't she ever marry? Because from the Mishnah it seems to be that you can never marry, even if you're worried that her chavta became pregnant and you don't have a pregnancy test. Wait 9 months. Because you need to know that a child was born. You know she's expecting, but you know if a child was born. That's right. So let her wait 9 months. But you're asking a good point. So let's say what Rashi says. The question here is, let her do chalitza right away. Why does she have to wait 9 months before she does chalitza? So Rashi is going to remind us of the Gemara we learned earlier. So Rashi says, you have to wait 9 months before if her sister, not her sister-in-law, keep on mixing it up. If her co-wife is pregnant, you know why? Even if she did chalitza, she may not get married while her her co-wife is pregnant before she actually has the baby. Maybe it's from tzarasa, it just became chaverta. Why? Because now she's getting her free. Now she's making her free. The brother-in-law. No, we're speaking about the ratio over here. In the ratio, there was a brother-in-law. The question was whether or not her co-wife had a child, and that's why she would be potter from evil. But in the ratio, there was a brother-in-law. So the halach is, even if she did chalitza, she wouldn't be able to get married within 9 months. Maybe her chaverta, she just became a chaverta from being a terasa, and maybe it's a viable child. Chalitza does not pater. While a woman is pregnant, chalitza will not pater. She would actually have to do, even if she did chalitza within 9 months, she'd have to do chalitza again. The chalitza does not work within 9 months. A woman who has a child, so if there's a child born that's causing the tour to Yibum, chalitza doesn't work during that period. But but the problem is, the Vlad wouldn't pater from Yibum until the Vlad is born. So while someone's pregnant, while her Torah is pregnant, her Torah is in limbo. She can't do chalitza because if there's going to be a tour for Yibum because she had a child, chalitza doesn't work. But you can't do Yibum yet because you have to wait till the child survives. So because of that, she'd have to wait 9 months.
If there's a baby.
But there are limudim from psukim that when the mother is pregnant and we don't know yet if it will be a viable vlad, during that period of time, chalitza does not work. You have to wait till you see that the baby's a healthy baby. I'm not sure. So Zok to Gemara, I think only say that to the Chshad. Not sure. You don't. Once the child is born, you don't need chalitza. Then you have the heter because of a blood. So Zok to Gemara, I don't understand. From our Mishnah, it seems to say that this woman does not have an eitzah. Think about it. The most she'd have to wait is 3 months, and for her chaverta, let her wait 9 months. She doesn't know. She doesn't know what's happening in this young. Could be her sister-in-law has a child, and then she's wanted to marry anybody. And even if her sister-in-law didn't have a child, well, then the chalitza would work. So why is she a naguna, so to speak, 9 months, more than 9 months? Chanina Amar la'atzma shloisha lechaverta la'olam. Gemara. Why l'chavit l'olam? Rashi b'shul chavit tzrich l'hamtim l'olam acheteda imesh levad amlav. It's not enough to do this chalitza misafik. You need to know exactly. You need to know exactly whether or not she has a blood. She can't do chalitza in a mother. I'm free. That does not work.
Why not? Why the lo'im?
Because she doesn't know if her sister had a baby. Unless she actually verified and found out. We were speaking to Medina Sayyaf, we didn't have communication, so she has no idea what happened. So Zok Gemara, so I don't understand what the problem. Let her do chalitza b'malachshech. If there was a baby born, she's free anyway. And if there's no baby born, then the chalitza works. Like Rashi says, the sachlitz lachet has to be malachshech. V'sinosin, let her marry. Im yoda terasa harinifta lavavlat. Im lav harei chalitza patrasa. So after 9 months, why can't you just do a chalitza? We talked about the Gemara. Abaye bar Avin, Rabbi Chanina bar Avin, 2 brothers. Amri Tervayu, they both explained it. It's Gzeira Shemi Yevlad ben Kayama. If this is a Vlad ben Kayama, so that means this woman never had chalitza. The problem is when a woman gets chalitza, it's known that she may not marry a kohen because a chalutza may not marry a kohen. So what's going to happen is after they found, everyone assumed that she got a chalitza. Everybody assumed that she was a chalutza, she's asked to marry a kohen, and then we find out that her kohen had a baby. So come to her chalitza wasn't really a chalitza, and she's mutter to a kohen. And therefore they're going to have to make an announcement. Everybody should know this woman that you saw chalitza was made on her, and you think she can't marry a kohen. So sufficient she could marry a kohen as well. Correct? It's a big deal. So make the announcement. Why is that such a big deal? You're not going to let her get married forever because you might have to announce to a kohen. So Gemara, no. Dilma ikadav b'chalitza. What if there was somebody who watched the chalitza? So in his mind, this woman is a chalitza and she's also to marry a kohen. He'll have a ba'achros, but he missed the announcement, and he'll then go see that this woman married a kohen. He might even be invited to the wedding. But Amri, he's going to say, "Kasharu chalutza l'kohen." They allowed a chalutza to marry a kohen. So that's going to create a kilkul because people are going to think that a woman who had chalitza could marry a kohen, and therefore we don't allow her to ever get married. What's hidden by mom's like this? Oh, I didn't know that. So Dr. Gemara, Tanan we learned. Nitan liben. What if a woman comes back from Medina Sayyam and she says, although I left without any children, Nitan liben Medina Sayyam, I had a child there. V'amra meispini. And then she said, my son died. The achach baili means I'm still mechuyev in yibam. That meant that she's believed because she left with the chazaka that if her husband died, she'd have to do yibam, and her testimony isn't changing that. But meis baili ve'achach b'ni. But if she's coming back and she's saying my husband died and I'm not mechuyev in yibam, then ain't a menace. She's not a menace because we're choshed that she still needs yibam, but the choshed l'dvareh we don't let her do yibam either. And therefore, we require chalitza. In that case, why aren't we concerned over there as well? How do you let her do chalitza and then marry l'shul? Maybe Edom are going to come and verify that what she said, that she had a child that survived her husband, was true, and in fact her chalitza is a farce, and you're gonna have to make acharaza that this woman is mutter to a kohen. The Amri. You say the same thing like you said in our case. You're right. In that case, you know why there wasn't a concern? Because before she married this husband, she was divorced. So everybody already knows anyway, this woman will never marry a kohen. So there is no churus required because she's not marrying a kohen. She's a grusha anyway. A very big ukimta, right? But if she wasn't a grusha, and the only reason why she can't marry a kohen is because she's a chalutza, then they're going to make this announcement. She said that there were no Edom whatsoever that could have possibly seen that I had this child. We were locked away in a cave, and it was just me, my husband, and the baby. My husband died, and the baby died. No Edom were there. So if there's no Edom, there's no chance that she's going to be verified, so she will remain a chalitza. So the problem is, think about it. It's mind-boggling. Because we're worried that they might make the announcement and somebody will see the chalitza and not see the announcement. Because of that, and she might marry a kohen. Because of that, we lock her up forever. So this woman should be in the Guna forever. So there are those who learn that if a woman makes a nether that I will not marry a kohen, then we'll let her remarry. She makes a nether. But there are those who hold no, maybe she'll violate her nether. Because the question is, a woman would rather say, I won't marry a kohen, but don't lock me up forever. We're worried that she might marry a kohen. We're afraid she will. We're afraid she will. So someone, I'm sorry? Yeah. But so someone said over a moiridik eitza. What should she do? She stopped. So one of the Rishonim said moiridik eitza. Let her go be mekabel kedushin from somebody. This woman, it's a suffix if she's mechuyev in Yibam or not. Let her go be mekabel kedushin from somebody. Then she'll need a get. Boom! Now she can marry a kohen, and there she'll be able to do chalitza and get married. That's what the Rishonim speak of. So there's always a way out. Zok to Gemara. Shtei Yevamos. What if there were two Yevamos? And Rashi says there are two sisters married. I'm sorry, not two sisters. There are two women married to two brothers. So Shtei Yevamos. Reuben and Shimon were each married, and they went away together. Zuay Meres Meis Bali. This woman says, my husband died. So she's nema that her husband died. But you can't marry Lashuk. You know why? Because her brother-in-law is alive. So she's mechuyev in Yibam. Right? And the Zuay Meres Meis Bali. And the other woman said, my husband died. So she's nema to say her husband died, but now she's mechuyev in Yibam to the other one. And the problem is we learn that each woman is not believed legabe her Torah. Right? So come to Reis, there's two women whose husband died.
Not sorry.
They're not sorors. There's two women who's. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Not sorors. But again, you're believed. You're believed for yourself, but you're not. But you're not believed for her. So the problem is because of that, zu asura woman A is ushered to marry out because she has no proof. She needs to aid him to say that her yavam died. But could we learn that she's not nemesis to say her yavam died? She's only managed to say her husband died. So because of that, although her husband died, she's now zakuk to Yibam. V'zu asura, so they're both rabshus achatidim, like we said before. Zok to Gemara. What happened? Okay. L'zu edim, l'zu ein edim. What happens if one woman had edim, one woman had two edim that her husband died, and the other woman didn't have two edim that her husband died? She just said my husband died. So then, as sheyeshla edim, the woman who has edim, asura, she's us, because we verified that her husband died, but we don't know that the yavam died. But veshe'ela edim, the woman who doesn't have edim, she's just saying on her own, my husband died. She's doing okay. Muteris, she'll be muteris. Why? Because her husband died. She's believed to say, and she has two edim to say that her brother-in-law died, so she could go free. How about lezu banim, lezu eid banim? There's two women married to two brothers. One of the brothers had children, one didn't. So the woman who has children, who says, my husband died, she's mutter because there's no chiyuv yibum for her. She has children. But the woman who doesn't have children, asura, she'll be asur, because even though she's not managed to say her husband died, but we don't have verification that the yavam died. What happens if nisyabmu? What happens if nisyabmu? So it means there weren't just two brothers in the family, there were four brothers in the family. So these two women came back, they each said that their husband died, and they did yibum illegally, right? They weren't allowed to do yibum, but they did yibum illegally. I'm sorry, they did yibum illegally, because they're both nemenes to say. They're both nemenes that their husband died, right? And there's a yavam for them, because there were two surviving brothers. So they each did yibum. And now umesu hayavama. And now their new husbands also died without children. So once again, they're still in that scenario where there might be another brother alive somewhere, so they're usher. Therefore, asuras linase, they will remain usher at this point. But once we allow them to marry the two yavaman that we know for sure are alive, they become mutter forever, and we're going to have to understand why. Tana we learn. What if one woman had Adam and children, and the other woman didn't have Adam or children? They'll both be mutter. Why? Because the woman who has banim is mutter, because once she's not managed to say her husband died, There's no chiv yibum, she has children. But she also has Adam, who say her husband died. So therefore, the other woman, she's believed to say that her husband died. We have two Adam to say her Yavam died, so she's also free. Nisyabmu, who Meso Yavam, they did Yibum to two other brothers, the surviving brothers, and then those two surviving brothers died once again without children. Asur and Linase, our Mishnah says, they're not allowed to remarry. Rabbi Lazar Omer, Hoil v'hutru liyavamin, since they were mutter to the Yavamin, hutru l'chalodam, they're mutter to everybody. Again, we don't understand the reason for this yet. Zog to Gemara, let's just see Rashi, what he says. The last Rashi on the Mishnah gives us a little taste of what Rabbi Lazar means. Hoil v'hutru liyavamin, since they were allowed to marry the two surviving brothers, the cheskas, shemesu b'aleyan, based on the chazaka, that each of their husbands died, sulay mitzeran, they will no longer be usher ever again. The nechash l'shema chayin heim, to be chayshid that maybe their yavam are alive. We don't worry about that anymore, but I'm not sure yet why. Boy Rava. So Rava wanted to know what's going on up here. My timer, the Rabbi Elazar. What is the svara of Rabbi Elazar? Is it mishum de kasaver? Is it because she holds Sarah me'ida l'chaverta? Does she hold that a tzara could be made on the chaverta? And therefore, there's an amonis here side that her husband died, and side that her yavam died, her brother-in-law. Or maybe the reason why we say that she can marry is she won't want to be mekalkal herself. She will not want to be mekalkal. Oh, beautiful. Zok Toisvis, my time in Rabbi Elazar mishum de kasaver tzara me'ida l'chaverta temalari. Amayle polik Rabbi Elazar be'idach birka. Gabi akol ne'monim la'ida chutz mechamoisa. And so, right, that was the discussion. We were saying up until now that you're not believed by Tarasa, but the chashav Tarasa, v'yavimta. V'yi Rabbi Elazar Iri, l'basar the intzava. And if maybe Rabbi Elazar is saying that normally, if a woman comes along and says your yavam died, yeah, you don't believe her. You don't believe her. You don't believe the Gabi Tarasa. But if she actually got married, so she's putting her life on the line, because if she got married, wouldn't that be proof positive that her husband died? But even though normally she's not meant to say my husband died, because she wants to mess up her sister-in-law, right? Because her sister-in-law is her Yevemta. Her sister-in-law might end up being her co-wife. Yeah, but maybe Rabbi Elazar argues on that, right? So we'll see. So if you want to say, "V'i Rabbi Elazar Ari levashad intzava, levashad intzava tzara," mikamokim still liflagi gabi ahi the meis baili b'achach meis chami tinasei b'chamoisa asura. That's where he should have argued, like you did. Where the Gemara discussed the Talmud Tovtim Plishtim, that's where Rabbi Elazar should have inserted his comment. He shouldn't have waited till this case, because he's arguing. He's saying once a woman puts her money where her mouth is and gets married based on her testimony, then you can believe that her husband died. For Rabbi Elazar lo yaser, even shenis zakala. V'nir l'ri the loy dami. Our question here is different than the Gemara that Duvi asks from. The lo'il vadai sha'atzara oya yavama ba lahoy al chaverta. The reason why in those cases the tzara came, or the one of these five women came, she didn't come to be mater herself. She was coming only to say testimony regarding the other person. There you don't trust her because you're choshed, she's just trying to mess her up. Therefore, ain law liyos nemenes afil Rabbi Elazar. Even Rabbi Elazar would agree that if she's coming to say testimony on behalf of somebody else, of course you don't believe her because there's a Thomas now. Here, each woman is coming to say testimony for her own status. My husband died, right? Because therefore I'm allowed to marry out. We're trying to say that since she's believed for herself, because that's the main purpose of her testimony, so let us now use that nemonos and teach us something that'll help her co-wife or her sister. So therefore, here Rabbi Elazar says, where she only came to her, for her own purposes, where she has an nemonos, once we crystallize that nemonos, so we use that nemonos to impact her sister-in-law. But surely everybody agrees, if she's coming to say testimony specifically for her sister-in-law, or specifically for her tzara, there for sure you wouldn't believe her at all. And you would say Thomas Nafsh. Okay, we'll stop here and we'll be mamshech tomorrow. So it's a good kasha, but it's a geshmak teretz also. It's a geshmak teretz. Sometimes the teretz doesn't sound, it's a geshmak teretz. It makes a big difference what she's coming to do. It's clear.